Hello, welcome to BSgroup Data Analytics presents XLCubed, the forum from experts for experts. Today we will take a deeper look at slicers and how to control them within Excel. For that we create a sheet containing all elements necessary for control. This is a template we use in our reports. In here we find the name, title, control elements like default, selection, visibility, multi-select or filtering. Filtering I will address at the end of this video. In this sheet we define everything necessary to control slicer. The nice side effect is that we also have a documentation on the available slicer. Let's start creating each slicer and apply the appropriate setting. Let's start with the Excel slicer. We choose our content. We give it a name, like the name in the sheet. We get the title from Excel. We say update range. Here we can define if it's the key column or the caption column. We can set the initial value. And we can define when it should be set, when the report opens. Let's create our second slicer. As we can see, multi-select is active. Update range. If multi-select is enabled, we have to select a range for the selected values. In our template, I have prepared 16 rows for that. Again, set the initial value. And get the title from cell. There are some useful functions within Excel coming with XLCubed. For example, we can use the XL3 dimension lookup function to get the title directly from the cube. Or we can control the visibility of a slicer using Excel formulas. For that we can use XL3 set property. And if we use the update range feature, we can define if we update the range using the unique name or the caption. In some cases it makes sense to use the unique name, in other cases it makes sense to use the caption. If we decide to use the unique name, we can use another XL3 function, member lookup, in order to get the proper name again out of the cube. Every slicer area has its slicer usage, where we can say or define how we want to use the slicer. It can be that we don't use the slicer in any grid, that we use the range to reference the selection, or we use the slicer itself to reference the slicer. I will demonstrate both cases. Now let's create our last slicer. No multi-selection, update range. This time we use the caption. Report opens. Now, as we can see in the sheet, we always see what the slicer, which values we have selected. Now, let's create a sample report to reference the slicer. I have prepared a sample. Now let me demonstrate you how to assign them. Geographic country I have used in my chart, and I have a slicer on this element. So automatically displays me the slicer in here. But in my slicer sheet, I have defined to use the range. So let's go and pick the range. We can either use the members or we can use this one. And we have the date calendar, and we see again the slicer. This time we reference the slicer on quarter level. Now, as we can see, the chart is empty. This is because there is no validator behind our selection. By default, XLCubed will not offer you members which have no data. You can change this behavior so that all members are returned by turning off the Remove Empty button. Let me demonstrate you this. Therefore, we activate the filtering and we use the slicer to control the data. In this case, on country, we use the date calendar. Date calendar, we use geography country. Now, based on our selection, we see available items change. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, feel free to like, comment and share. If you don't want to miss any feature, subscribe to our LinkedIn group, BSgroup DR presents XLCubed, or subscribe our blog on our homepage. See you next time, your BSG Data Analytics team.